Hello, this is Socially Triggered, and this video is going to be on the famous quote, uh, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I kind of want to discuss this because one of the misconceptions that we have in our society, and it's more of a modern misconception, especially as socialism becomes more and more popular. Like I think they said, I think the studies are showing like 60% of youth are socialist and openly socialist. Which is insane to me. Do they really want more people dead? Like, really, that's my concept of socialism. Um, and and it comes from this whole notion, and the notion is this: that what if I was in charge of the world? I could make it a beautiful, perfect utopia. And that's the way most people think. When most people think that only if I was in charge, I could make this world better. If they just did things in a different way, if they just followed my philosophies, if they just believed what I believe, it would be a better place. So what ends up happening is you get people with that kind of mentality that they think that they know best. They know what the world should be like. Everyone should think like them. And what ends up happening is disaster. This is why I'm against equality, because the idea behind equality is that everyone does think the same, that all people are interchangeable. And the funny thing is, people are not interchangeable. We're not the same. We're not equal. We're different. There's better people and worse people. There's all different types of people. And because of that, any one person can't really dictate what other people should be thinking because they think differently. So this is one of the misconceptions about the way people think of the world and how it should be run, is that if they were in charge, then people would be better off because they can somehow control the system. They can rig it to make it work where everybody would be better off. And this is the way governments think. Governments say, oh, we'll create jobs. We will be the ones that protect the individuals. We will be the ones that offer healthcare. We will be the ones that offer education. And they do that with the thought that they are the ones that know it best and know what people need. Rather than saying, hey, let people decide for themselves. Let people make those same decisions for themselves. Because what I like is very different from what somebody else likes. Like I like eating apples. I'd probably eat apples all day. Now, if everybody in the world had to eat apples, well, I'm sure there'd be people that hate apples out there and they'd be like, why are you forcing me to eat apples? It's that kind of idea that people have different needs and have different wants and different desires. And because we have different wants and desires, there's no way that one person can dictate those wants and desires to everybody else, because they're not going to be the same. They're not going to be happy with what somebody else dictates to them. So this is why it's so important to understand how power corrupts absolutely. It doesn't even have to be an evil intent. It doesn't have to be that when people become powerful that they somehow become super evil. They don't have to become evil. They can have good intentions and destroy the world. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like when people created minimum wage laws, they thought they were doing something good. They thought, hey, if I create a law that protects people so that there's no way that they can get paid less than X dollars, well, then I'm protecting people. I'm helping people. Well, what those same laws did was it was basically encouraging racism. Because, if now what happened in the US was black people were generally willing to work for less than white people. And so what would happen is black unemployment was fairly low before the minimum wage laws came into play. And the reason they were low was they would be willing to work for less. And so they would get jobs because the employer would be like, okay, well, I can pay this black guy much less than this white guy. So might as well hire the black guy. So what ended up happening is the black guy would get hired and he would do a good job. He would learn the skill and he'd get better and he would see some upward mobility. Put in the minimum wage laws, and it's like, okay, now I can choose. Do I hire the black guy for $3 or do I hire the white guy for $3? Well, the white guy, he has maybe a better education, or he's white and I'm white and I like hiring people that look like me. Well, I'll hire the white guy. And so the black guy is like screwed out of that opportunity because he can't compete against the nepotism of the way people are. You'll notice people generally hire people that look like themselves. And if the majority of the companies were white owned, well, they're going to hire people that look like them. And it sounds like racism, but it really isn't. It happens, like if you go to any store in Toronto where there's like owners of every different race, they all do it. They all hire their own. It's basically like any store is just like, hey, it's always the same people. They're always like, it's not like very diverse in terms of the staffing of most businesses. They're usually one group, and that's just the way it is. But it was this minimum wage law that encouraged the racism, or what we perceive as racism, because people will naturally select people that look like themselves. But the point is, it was done with a good intention, and the net result is increase in black unemployment and increase of poverty of black people. So it's like these laws that are created actually can have very detrimental effects. And what would have been better is just say, hey, freedom, here you go, freedom. You as a business owner decide how much you want to pay your employees, how much, and if you think you can't pay them that much, well, you won't be paying them that much. You pay them how much you think you can get. It's a negotiation. If you can pay some person less than some other person, and you feel like that person can do just as good of a job, you'll hire that other person. So generally that's what happens. But if the government mandates, or some person that thinks that they know best mandates something, then they're taking away that freedom from the business, and the business will generally not hire as many people. It will have all these weird social implications. And so, as I said, power corrupts, and not in the way that most people think. Yes, there are people that will do drugs and, have lots of women and whatever. They'll do all those vices that we associate with corruption. But a more subtle corruption, and probably the more destructive corruption that exists with power, is this notion of the fact that those in power think that they know better than everybody else, that they know how the world should be built. They know what we should be doing with our lives. And that's how power really corrupts. Because what ends up happening is these people that think that they know best are deciding for everyone else how they should live their lives. And that's when really bad things happen. I always think about Medicare. They always say, oh, I know best as a government for Medicare. And they think that they should create what's called universal health care, where they decide everybody's health care. Well, generally what ends up happening is if you create universal health care, the costs go up, because whenever the government's involved, they don't find the most efficient way of doing it. They deliver care based on what they think people need and want. And what ends up happening is it becomes very expensive, the waiting lists get longer, and the quality goes down. And that's generally what happens with government care. I look at Canada, and the healthcare is getting worse every year. And the government always says, we'll put more money in it. That usually whenever they say they'll put more money in it, it's going to get even worse, because that means that they're trying to control it even more. So generally what you want is a free market. Have people decide what they want. Let them put their money towards what they think will best suit them. And generally, as a result, you'll have a much more much more market-driven and much more a balanced healthcare system, or any system. All of these things, where the government gets involved, it generally brings down the quality. And what you really want is people deciding what their needs are. I don't want the government to tell me what healthcare I should get, or what education I should get, or what job I should get. I want to have the freedom to make those decisions for myself. Now, there are people who generally don't mind the idea of the government making those decisions for them. They will let the government be the one that decides it. They'll be the ones that are dependent on the government. And the government actually tries to foster that. And that's how I really see the corruption getting deep rooted in our society, that it tries to foster this whole idea of government dependency. One of the things that good parents should do is they're not about how to make their children dependent on them. A good parent actually makes a child independent. Like, a child should not stay in the nest too long. A good mother bird will kick their child out of the nest, and the baby will either fall to their death or they'll learn to fly. And it's when they learn to fly that they're truly free. And the same happens in our society. If we constantly are coddling the child, then they'll never learn to be free or fly or be safe. Well, governments are very into that, where they really do want to coddle us. They depend on it. They tell us that, they are the ones that know best, that they are the ones who will protect us and see us, through any problem that we might have. They are the ones that will make the decisions for us. And after a while, if you live in that kind of mentality, you become dependent on it. You don't want to decide. People are generally lazy, and if somebody's willing to give them money for doing nothing and make the decisions for them, it can get very convenient, and people will become dependent on the government, and the government loves that because it's seeking that. It wants to grow and grow and grow, and the way it does that is by creating more and more dependency. And this is generally why I don't like governments, and big government especially, because it creates that dependency. A good government should be like a good parent. It should help people when they need help, but give them as much freedom and the ability to fly on their own as possible. It should lift them out of the bird's nest and throw them up where they can fly on their own as much as possible. It should encourage that freedom. And freedom doesn't mean that everybody's going to be successful in life, but we should have both the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail. And that's one of the biggest lessons that we have to learn, that people will fail, and that's okay. It's okay that people fail. But if you always try to protect everyone and never give them that chance to either make it or break it, then you're going to have a society where there's going to be no success. Everybody's just going to be this like drone of the government, and it's a really sad thing in my mind, where I see the corruption of that, the power absolutely corrupting not just the people themselves who are in hold of that power, but the society that gets influenced by that corruption. That idea that they know best, and that we as individuals don't know what's best for us. So this is how I see power corrupting, and corrupting absolutely. It's not in the general sense of the person. It's more, it corrupts the person, and it corrupts absolutely the society around it. So I hope you like this idea of how power corrupts, and how those who think that they know best, the elite of society, sometimes are the ones that are causing the most grief in our society. That by doing these good doers, basically, are basically preventing people from really evolving as people and learning and growing and making their own free decisions and best decisions for themselves that really cater to their own interests. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my other videos and subscribe, like, comment, all that kind of stuff. And bye for now.